We have a family of bats up here. I mean, we've got probably 3 right there. And then over here's another one. And then down here is that one. I wish I could get that closer. 3, 4, there's 5 bats over here. It's a family. It's just a family. That's crazy. I should have 0 mosquitoes around here. 0. Crazy. Wish my Zoom was better. So, first thing I want to do, now, warning. This has a lot of political ranting in here, and at the very end, I'm going to tell you my thoughts on Tim Walz, the Democrat candidate for VP. So, first thing I want to talk about is Commie-Law, C-O-M-M-I-E, Commie-Law, wants those who were responsible for the tragedies of Ruby Ridge and Waco to come to your house armed with their own guns to take your legally owned firearms to prevent what? Crime? Self-defense? We've been told we shouldn't be allowed to defend ourselves. That in itself is a crime against citizens as well as crime against the Constitution. Mandatory gun buyback, which I've heard over and over from her, is just code for confiscation. Plain and simple, we know that. I mean, they can't buy back what they didn't sell you in the first place. And another code word, universal background checks. You know what I mean? Gun registry, illegal, unconstitutional. Okay? What do red flag laws mean? It means taking an end run around due process. That's what it means. Bypassing personal rights, and if your neighbor doesn't like you or has decided that he wants you gone, he just reports you to the feds as being off kilter and waving guns around, even if it's a complete lie. Oh, that never happened, right? So, do you want some ignorant waste of breath like Jerry No Nads, No Nothing Nadler, who doesn't know a 223 from a 308 or whatever? He doesn't know anything about ammo. He knows nothing about guns. He has his own private protection, right? People here telling you that you don't deserve the right to protect yourself? Using trigger words like assault weapons, which of course, that mythical creature they've never defined. What does that mean, assault weapon? Does it mean things that look big and scary? I imagine even I would look big and scary to Jerry Nadler. If he knew my personal beliefs, I would be very scared to him. They're afraid of you. They're afraid of Christians. They have a raging case of Christophobia. So, the only defense against criminals with guns are armed citizens with their guns. You have to have at least as good a weapon as your attacker has, right? I mean, if you're not Bruce Lee, which he couldn't even dodge a bullet. He couldn't even outrun a bullet. So, law-abiding citizens with guns. So, here's the question. Are they actually law-abiding citizens anymore if they change the laws? Yes, they are. Because the law then becomes unconstitutional and null and void. And do you really care if the jackbooted thugs think that you should be unarmed and defenseless? Do you care what they think? Armed and defenseless against an out-of-control government, that's why we have the Second Amendment in the first place. And they say, well, that's a well-regulated militia. It was for the military. There was no actual militia in the colonies. There was no actual military, not militia, but military in the colonies. Not well-organized militia. It just means citizens with their own firearms. That's all it means. So, when the government throws the law away, then there is no law. We are without rule of law. And it's up to us to take things in our own hands to protect ourselves. But Jamie Ratskin, I'm calling him Ratskin, he does kind of look like that rat I trapped in the barn last time. Face is kind of similar. Jamie Ratskin is talking about staging a true insurrection, overthrowing the government. Because he says that if President Trump gets reelected on January 6th, they're going to disqualify him. Forcibly disqualify him? They've already tried to kill him. And yeah, I say they. You really think that 20-year-old geeky kid, you really think he planned that? You really think he got past Secret Service when a Pakistani guy just got arrested for plotting to kill President Trump and a lot of other Republicans, and he didn't get away with it? So how did a 20-year-old kid get away with it? Well, because he had a lot of help. That's how. So I want to talk about this stupid clickbait video I saw from some channel called Court Investigation. It's about Thomas Crooks. Excuse me, hang on. Sorry, I've been taking down fencing again today, and I was out in all that stuff that was growing up into the fencing. Okay, this clickbait video from something called Court Investigation Channel, and it was narrated by some British guy. And they called Thomas Crooks, the one that shot President Trump, a child. He'd been a legal adult for 2 years, people, not a child. Y'all need to stop saying that. He was not a child under Mommy and Daddy's thumb. A lot of you don't remember. You may be too young to remember, but you know legal age hasn't always been 18. The legal age used to be 21. And when my husband went into the Air National Guard, he was 18 years old. At that time, being a legal adult meant 21 years old. And the reason the reason that the legal age was lowered to 18 was the big to-do about, okay, they can go die for their country, they can carry firearms and go into war, but they can't vote, they can't drink alcohol, and they can't vote legally. And so it was changed. There may be more behind it than that, but that's the gist of it. When I was growing up, legal age was 21, not 18 years old. But now it's 18. So, they kept calling him weird. For another shooter, Ethan Crumley, 15-year-old shooter, they kept calling weird. Well, does weird mean you have no constitutional rights? No. There's mental illness, and the mental illness and moral deficiency are problems here. That's what the problem is. Not being weird. I'm weird to people like No Nads, No Nothing Nadler. Because he can't comprehend somebody with a strict moral code, or somebody who always speaks the truth. He can't comprehend that because it's a foreign animal to him. But mental illness and moral deficiencies is the problem here, not some hunk of metal that didn't go out there and start shooting people of its own volition. It didn't suddenly become a sentient being and start killing people without somebody behind the trigger. So, you know, and they kept saying, why did his parents not know? Well, honey, he was an adult person. He may have been living in their house, but he was still an adult. And how many parents go through their adult child's bedroom when they're a legal adult? How could they not notice him bringing this stuff in the house? Well, I'm sorry, do they spy on him? Maybe they don't spy on him. Maybe they thought that whatever they taught him his whole life, it's time to put it into practice as a legal adult. So, what's the difference? I mean, first of all, adult parents should not be held accountable for their progeny's crime unless it can be proven they planned it together. Crooks' parents called the cops. Cops ignored it. You gonna blame his parents? Ethan Crumley's parents were actually sentenced to manslaughter, charged with manslaughter, because he went and shot people. They said they knew he was, this British guy said, they knew he was weird and they bought him a firearm anyway. I don't know any 15-year-old boys who aren't a little bit weird, do you? They're 15-year-old males. Buying somebody a firearm and trying to teach them, going to the range and teaching them how to use it, it's not a crime. So, why is a parent responsible for an adult? What if my 45-year-old son moves back in the house with me and he commits a crime? Am I supposed to know what he's doing every minute of every day? No, he's been on his own. He's been an adult for a long time. Graduated college in the early 20s. In his early 20s. And he's 45 years old. I'm not responsible for what he does. Even if I've taught him better and he didn't, and he apparently didn't learn it, let me tell you. You can teach your child right from wrong. I taught my sons right from wrong. Have they always done exactly what I thought they should do? Oh, no. No, they have not. Neither one of them. Neither one of them. They both made decisions that I didn't agree with at all. They were adults. Their decision, their consequences, not mine. Not mine. I didn't finance their mistakes. They financed their own mistakes. So should I ransack his room to see what he's doing and what he's hiding if he's an adult? Maybe some people think so. But you know, a lot of parents do have a blind spot when it comes to their progeny. And when my kids were growing up and that I had to deal with unruly children that my kids encountered, it became very clear to me that these parents really had a total blind spot when their kid was concerned. My husband and I tried not to have that. We tried to always have our eyes open. We didn't just illogically defend our kid no matter what he did. But the world's influence is much stronger than parents today, and the world is worse than it was. People say, oh, the world's always been bad. No. See, this is a different kind of thing. This truly is different for a lot of reasons. But of course, leftists always blame somebody other than the perpetrator for crimes. Can't be his fault. He wasn't taught right. But does weird mean he's a murderer or a rapist or something? No, it doesn't mean that. But they did report Thomas Crooks at the last minute, and nobody listened to them. So, but you know, as far as the word weird, we'll talk about Mr. Tim Walz in a minute, him using that word for us. Most lefties think that anyone with a strict moral code is weird. They think people who won't tell a lie to save their own skin are weird. I think they're weird. Am I accusing them of a crime? No. Might they commit it? Sure. Just about anybody might commit a crime given the right circumstances. So they think we're weird, we think they're weird. Does that automatically mean either of us is going to commit murder? No, it doesn't. Of course, never mind that these days it's almost always the far extremist left that are committing these crimes. But you know, facts really confuse these people. They don't confuse me with the facts is their tagline, right? And of course, Kamala Harris is eternally confused. She's the perfect candidate for non-thinkers. So let me mention to you what I think of Tim Walz. Her picking Tim Walz is like picking Gavin Newsom without being called Gavin Newsom. That's how off the wall insane this man is. She nixed Josh Shapiro as a running mate because she's an anti-Semite. He served in the IDF, Israeli IDF. She can't have anyone pro-Israel sitting in the seat next to her. This Harris-Walz duo is the most dangerous ticket in the history of our country. And if this regime continues unabated as it has, the country itself is going to be history. So let's talk about Tim Walz. Rabidly pro-China. He's been to Communist China 30 times that we know of. He's rabidly pro-Islam and pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine. He's rabidly anti-Constitution and rabidly anti-American. And to add to his sins, he's guilty of stolen valor, something I cannot abide. He keeps saying he spent 25 years in the Army and carried weapons of war. He did not spend 25 years in the Army. He was in the Army National Guard. And when they were about to get deployed to Iraq, guess what Timmy did? Timmy quit. rather than actually do the job he was trained to do by them. He quit. He's a coward. He's a coward. And he talked about carrying, he want to remove and forbid weapons, take away from citizens what he says are weapons of war he carried in war. First of all, he never was in a war situation. Not one time. He didn't carry weapons of war into combat. He didn't ever go to combat. He wimpied out before he got there. Everybody in the National Guard trains on their weapons, right? Everybody trains with it. He didn't carry it into war because he never went to war. He hid under the couch. All the training they gave him, he just threw in the toilet and left. And went into politics. How convenient. Of course, you can make plenty of money in politics, right? So Gavin Walz, Gavin Walz. I should have said that. Tim Walz is the Gavin Newsom of Minnesota. Someone who simply cannot be allowed to be in the White House. You can't allow this. He's worse than Biden because he doesn't have dementia. He's knowingly and intentionally communist. And the first thing about him that he says about us, which is the first thing I heard him say. It's like, who the heck's Tim Walz? I didn't even know who the governor of Minnesota was at the moment. The first thing I heard him say, come on, these people are weird, right? Dude, don't tell me we're weird. You're the one who wanted to put tampon dispensers in the men's restroom. So, please tell me, Timmy boy, what are guys going to do with that item? What are they going to do with it? Or maybe maybe you shouldn't tell me. Maybe he ought to stuff them all in his mouth so he doesn't say another word, a stupid word, before he brings down our entire nation. You know, sometimes I feel as if we should put a physical moat around these leftist states. Don't allow them to leave. Make them eat each other. It's what they deserve, to not be able to get away from their own kind of insanity. They deserve each other. Those in government in Minnesota, like Michelle Bachmann, who is a normal person. Remember Michelle Bachmann? She got to Congress the same exact time that Walz did, and she said he came in pretending to be a moderate, and then he started screaming and ranting and raving and winking at people at BLM, destroying Minneapolis and all the other cities that they destroyed. And then Kamala bailed them out. Yeah, they're a fine dynamic duo that we should do everything we can to keep out of the White House. But, you know, those in government, like Michelle Bachmann, and a friend of mine who lives there in Minnesota, God bless her. She's a very conservative woman. You know what I think they should do? And you're not going to agree with me, but I'll tell you why they should. I think they should abandon ship and leave the state. Leave it to the crazies. Leave it to the Muslims. Leave it to the kind who hate our country and hate us. Leave that. The reason I say that is because if you have a lake of poison water, if you take a dropper and you put a couple of drops of pure water into the poison lake, is that going to purify the poison lake? No. The pure water becomes poisoned itself. It's like the Bible says, one drop of leaven leaveneth the whole lump, meaning if you put yeast in the bread, it's going to affect everything. Everything's going to rise. Leaven is yeast, as opposed to flatbreads. One drop of leaven leaveneth the whole lump, whatever. One drop of poison, one drop of pure water cannot purify a poisoned tub of water. Minnesota is a poison tub. California is a poison tub. New York is a poisoned tub. Make them stay where they are. Cut off their access to everybody else. Let them mull around in the stew of insanity they've created. The leftist states are contaminated. They are poisoned by this ideology, this communist ideology. And go back after state is this far gone, this overtly fascist. You can't go back, really. This is why we have 2A, to defend ourselves and our families from a government that's out of control. That's what they want. Democracy is mob rule. It's a majority rule. It's mob rule. That's what democracy is. We don't have a democracy in this country, and I wish everybody stopped using the word. So the people who keep saying, like Jamie Ratskin, keep saying that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Well, if you use democracy in the true sense of the word, he should be. He's definitely a threat to mob rule. He should be a threat to what democracy actually is. But he's certainly not a threat to our constitutional republic. And all these people like the Jamie Ratskin ilk, they're all saying, oh, he's a threat to democracy. Meanwhile, he just said what they plan to do. He said if Donald Trump gets reelected, then on January 6th, they're going to disqualify him. It's going to be a self-executing disqualification because he's guilty of insurrection, which he was acquitted of. He did not. Insurrection is overthrowing everybody trying to overthrow the government. But see, when you take a duly elected president and you snatch him out of the office and you take him out to the public square and execute him, that's kind of overthrowing the government. They say, oh, Donald Trump's a threat. All the while, they are threatening to take the will of the people after the election and put them into a grinder. They could. They put the people themselves into a true grinder after Donald J. Trump is reelected so they can stay safe in their Marxist illusions and delusions and control everybody who's not them. I'm trying to think, do I have something else I want to say about the guy who's now known as Timmy Tampon? The man is a Chinese plant, just like Biden was. Except that this man doesn't have dementia. He's more dangerous. He's far more dangerous. And the dynamic duo of Harris and Walz, that could be the death of our country. If those people stay in power, they will increase power. And then you're going to have to make some very, very tough decisions about what to do to protect yourself. So, don't you forget to vote. And don't you forget to register if you haven't registered. Don't let these people tell you the fix is in, when you don't know anything of the sort. Don't let them be swayed. That's the whole point for some people saying it, is they don't think you should vote. That we can't vote, nobody has a chance. I don't know that's true yet. I don't know that that's true. So, I'm going to exercise my constitutional right to cast my vote for, and you know who I'm voting for. I guess you could tell by the way I talk. And I can't understand the left because I don't understand why they want Harris in office. Why they think they're okay. Why the last 4 years they think that those have been good? Those have been hell. Why do they think that's been good? There's something else I wanted to say too, though. And I can't think of what it was. What was it I was going to say? This can't be allowed to happen, though. Can't be allowed to happen. I can't remember what it was I was going to say. Something else I meant to say. And I totally blanked out on it. But I'm going to leave you with a joke of the day. Pelosi saying that Biden is worthy of Mount Rushmore. Anyway, any immortal words are Forrest Gump. Unless I can think about what I was going to say before. That's all I have to say about that. Bye, y'all.